Hey everybody, welcome to The Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. Today we have Sebastian Mourra. He's a successful business owner, not just of one, but of multiple businesses. I've had the chance of interviewing him before, but today it's under the lights. So we're going to have a very good conversation. So, dude, I appreciate you being on the show.
No, of course, I appreciate, me being here and being with you, so have a good time.
Yeah. Well, dude, I think, you're a phenomenal entrepreneur. When I first learned about you and like kind of like the stuff that you were doing, you've worked with a lot of like, Fortune 500 companies, especially like, kind of back in the day with Razz, which I know you're not doing anymore. But walk me through, like, kind of before Raz, what you were doing, you, your wife, and then kind of how it transitioned into Raz, and then we'll kind of talk about after.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been an entrepreneur since I was younger. I mean, even going like middle school, high school, starting up businesses, doing things.
Yeah.
I was a DJ for many years and opened up a pro audio rental equipment company, and so did that locally in Miami. Rented out nightclubs, venues, throw major events, and that was my way of kind of making money.
Yep.
Never worked a full time job. This was always my call it a hustle, but
Yeah.
you go to school during the day and you're making your business and everything nights and weekends, just like a lot of startups and entrepreneurs do.
Yep.
And so I was very big in the music business and also into kind of digital and tech. That was always been a big thing. So as early as I can remember building websites, whether it was in Flash or any new technologies that would come up at the time, like that's how far back it would go. And so I had a company on the side that would do graphic design, print, web, and offering those services to companies along with the DJing and pro audio equipment side.
Yeah.
And from there, we saw, I worked at, I ended up working at Universal Music Group for many years. Again,
Yep.
continue with the music business. But during that time, I mean, we saw a big opportunity. I mean, mobile at the time, some people were dabbling with it, but it wasn't the standard yet, right? People
Right.
were still concerned, like, oh, I don't need to waste my time on that. And when we saw that opportunity, Elizabeth and I and our co-founders, we decided to open up a company called Razz, and that was very focused on mobile first. You could not work with us and not have a mobile experience tied to anything that we build for customers, and that was kind of like the foundation of it. And we worked with a lot of major brands in that area, tying in the music industry along with the big brands, Fortune 500. We've
Yep.
had really honored to be working with like Sprint, AT&T, Corona, Dunkin' Donuts, Universal Music Group, a lot of big name clients that we were fortunate to work with, and in order to develop those types of experiences. And that kind of from there kind of continues to grow. And from there we started seeing more opportunities. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur and also kind of seeing kind of what business develop is that you start seeing more and more opportunities
Yeah.
and finding ways to attack them. You start niche and then you expand outwards, and real estate was a big sector, obviously growing really fast. And so we built a SaaS product in the real estate sector, which grew and took it from there.
Yeah. Well, dude, I love that. I think, when I last spoke to you, one thing that I really liked about what you guys did is you guys gamified some sort of like experiences. Is that right?
Yes.
So walk, somebody through what that means, especially at that time period, because at that time period, I feel like everything was hard. Web was hard. You actually needed to learn how to code.
Everything.
Yeah.
It was insane. You don't have everything that we have today with like all the boot camps, the trainings, and all these different areas. I
Yeah.
mean, and it was harder. I mean, of course, YouTube and all these different things existed, but today that access to information is much easier. A thing that we saw was, any experience that we'd build, think of it, whether it's a website, it's a web app, or a mobile application, or anything like that. For us, we saw that gamifying those experiences led to higher engagement and increased loyalty. And so, even at the roots, when we built up Raz, we had a platform. It was our gamification and loyalty platform, which we didn't name at the time. We named it years later, but we
Yeah.
built the platform that allowed any brand to be able to spin up a loyalty program and a rewards program for their consumers, and to be able to gamify those experiences. So any actions that they take, they can earn points for it. And then they'd have a leaderboard. They can see how they rank within the community. And so we made that a turnkey gamification platform where instead of you having to go cough up 50,000, $100,000 to spin it up, you could have it for just a monthly subscription. And
Yeah.
that's when we turned it into a subscription product. And so, the first ever launch we did was with Corona and Universal Music.
Yeah.
We had millions of music downloads that, fans can download. We got the association of the brand along with the music industry and the artist and the talent and all of that. And, gave away millions of experiences. And we did that. We launched it with Sprint, hosted the first ever Pokemon Go rewards program.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a partnership between Sprint, Pokemon Go, and our platform powered the entire solution.
Yeah.
And at the time, they had over 65 million active Pokemon Go players. So
Damn.
imagine the tech and everything you had to build for it,
Yeah.
and obviously the pressure along with it. But it was an opportunity, and it was something very clear that they saw was kind of the value in a lot of the tech and the product and the experiences that we can provide to the consumers, and it was wildly successful.
Yeah, and walk me through really quickly. I mean, not me, but like for people that are listening, what does a gamification thing look like? So, like, yes, they earn points, they see a leaderboard, but does that help in drive engagement? Does that help, increase the LTV? What does that do?
Yeah, so I'll give you examples just from actual experiences. So, of course, driving more engagement was key, right? So, more activity, more awareness of the brand, interaction with the brand, and coming out with a positive experience with the brand, right?
Yeah,
That association you have with it. But a big driver for us was driving more activations at the stores. So, for example, if you think working with like a liquor company, right, they're not selling D2C. They're primarily hosted in different retail stores. Think the
that's true.
WalMarts, all these different things. And so our job was to drive towards those retail experiences. And a lot of them, like you had national partners who were offering, the beverages inside of the places, and then you had very localized. And so this platform helped them drive more sales by driving them to these retail stores,
Yeah,
which helps them to have more product, add more product placement at the end cases, right? And providing those experiences. And in the case when you think about, with Sprint, a big driver was driving more people to the stores, driving more signups to their mobile plans, which what our platform delivered. I mean, the amount of people who came in who wanted to check in at a Sprint store as a Pokestop, and then
crazy.
that leads over to increase in driving and sales. The sales
Yeah,
associates loved it, and our platform also powered the retail experience. So they would have everything on an iPad, and they were able to check in users at the destination.
yeah,
So we were able to track exactly the amount of people that were coming in, what cities, what states, because this was nationally. And so definitely it's a great way not only to engage, but drive more sales. And, in the end, that's kind of what it's all about on the business side of things.
for sure. Now, as a business owner, you've kind of been at like the forefront of a lot of things before they became popular, right? I think I remember last time I interviewed you and I spoke to you, you said you even created some sort of like drag and drop builder because it's just easier and things like that, right? And now obviously we see a ton of that. But because
Right.
you're at the forefront of these things, I think one popular topic right now that is at the forefront of everything is AI, right? So it's a huge thing. I'm into it, like everybody's into it, right? At this moment. Um,
Yeah.
how do you kind of see that playing out, not only in like your life and your experiences, but also for businesses around the world? Because a lot of people say it's going to take a lot of jobs, and a lot of people say it's going to create a lot of new jobs. What's your take?
Definitely. I think it's something that you have to pay close attention to. It's taken the world by storm. I
Yeah,
mean, if you think about even myself, as I think back when I was younger, of all the crazy things that could happen, like imagine if, you could just say this and 50 things happen. And
yeah,
that's coming closer to reality now with where AI is going. And so many people are worried about all the jobs that are get taken. And I understand that. And those are things that you do want to monitor and take a look closely. You even see Google saying that, a lot of reports showing that they probably had this tech for many years, but they slowed down on it because of the economic impact it could have. And
yeah.
obviously, there's a
Oh
lot
wow.
more in honesty and truth that you need to think about. But the way I see it is that this helps to amplify and really unlock what the human potential is, right? Makes you much more productive. Like imagine you being able to use this and be 10x productive on some
Yeah,
things. And it may eliminate a certain level of jobs. I would argue some jobs that people probably didn't want to take, and it will level up others to be able to go on and take on other jobs or other responsibilities, right? Depending on the companies that they're in.
yeah,
And, just like, I think another controversy you see is like what happens with education now that you have like things with
yeah,
OpenAI and ChatGPT.
yeah,
And it's like, well, how do you stop somebody from writing their paper along with this? Or how do you teach on these different subjects? How do they understand it? Which is all really good and reasonable. But it's the same thing as when the calculator came out, right?
yeah,
They had to teach differently and they had to rethink how they taught math. And I think that's the transition that we're going through right now is that, when you think about AI in the world, it's just now we have to adapt, right? And then we have to adapt and we have to change our ways on how we educate, change our ways on the job responsibilities, right? Maybe you don't need an assistant in the way that you thought an assistant you would need in the past, right?
yeah.
Because now a lot of that is automated. It just means the role of an assistant changes in the responsibilities that they're going to do. And actually, this is a platform that can help them make their jobs even better. So
100%.
it's the same thing where you can say, hey, maybe I don't need 10 assistants for all my executives in a large company. Maybe now we need two. But it doesn't mean that you eliminated the role altogether, as an example.
Yes.
I'm just making up as an example. And so That's my philosophy. I think I take a look at AI as something that you have to embrace, and it's going to require change. And human nature, they don't like to change, many
No.
people. And I think that's where you got to be on the cuff, is to kind of really tweak your thinking around it, and be at the forefront of things.
Yeah, and I think specifically on it, like education, I think that's hard to change because you have to change it at such a high level, right? Like because it's like every city in the U.S. like they have schools that people go to that are just on specific subjects that have been taught for like years. It's
Right.
just the way that it's taught is a little bit different. But like with this, with AI, yeah, I think it's going to be very hard if they try to fight it because obviously it's like it's almost becoming like the use of your cell phone, you know? Like, everybody uses their cell phone now. It's very difficult for someone not to use it. People are addicted. So, AI is like I think it's gonna become like another thing like that, like the dot-com bubble, right?
Right.
That was huge. The internet came about, things like that. Then crypto, that was huge, right? And then now it's died died down, at least for now. And then AI, yeah, like, yeah, and it's moving at an extremely fast pace. I think faster than
It
both of those. What do you
it I do see it as growing even faster, and I think everybody saw crypto as kind of the Web3, and a lot of people arguably are saying, really AI is Web3, right? That's
Yeah.
what it should have been, and everybody's trying to think about what the name is.
Yep.
And I think this is what a lot of people don't realize. It seems like it's moving so fast, and even to me, sometimes I'm like, wow, like you start seeing how quickly things have progressed.
Yeah.
But if you think about ChatGPT and OpenAI, I mean, they've been working on this for 7 years,
Yeah.
right? Or 5 or 7 years. It's been a while, right? And now it's where it looks like they've made leaps, and it's because they've taken a lot of time working in house in the lab,
Yep.
right, on what they're working on. And I think that how crazy we see that moving now, like we're going to start seeing everything progress even faster. And
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot that hasn't been released, and a lot that hasn't been made aware, that once it does come out, it's going to seem like we're continuing on that path and that trajectory to kind of move things tenfold. But that's what we want, right? If we're ever going to go to,
True.
Mars, or if we're ever going to
Yeah.
come up with, like, for health, and come up with, cures for different things, like we want to be able to accelerate the use of AI to be able to help for the better of humanity, right? And that is where I see a lot of potential with this.
How quickly do you see once we kinda get this stuff down, how quickly do you see stuff like, medical problems being solved by, like, AI or, like, complex things that, like, we take us, forever to do
Right.
that a supercomputer like an AI would be able to do?
That it's already happening, right? And it's not
Yeah.
even at the full potential. And I can't remember the exact product, but there was a case where someone's gone to the doctor. They went to multiple doctors, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And he had all these symptoms, and nobody can tell the difference in what it was. He went into ChatGPT. I'm not even kidding you. Went in there and started having a conversation with it, plugging in information, going back and forth with it, and ended up determining what the problem was. I don't remember what it was exactly. Went back to the doctor and explained it, and saved his life.
What the
Like,
fuck?
that's
Yeah.
already happening, and it's, the capable of how it's processed, and things that humans can miss due to error or elimination. Think about if somebody goes to the doctor, they don't really say every specific, but if they're
Yeah.
having this conversation online with ChatGPT, they're going to continue providing more and more insight into what it is until it reveals the answer.
Yeah.
And there's even another case, a company that they're leveraging AI. They're doing these types of MRI scans, and they'll use those scans, and they'll use AI to be able to scan every bit of the detail of the body. And because they're processing thousands
Wow.
or millions of MRI scans, they're able to detect like things to like 2 or 3 centimeters, like very tiny.
Yeah.
And it's saved a lot of people who have gone to use it. And so AI is being applied in so many different use cases that I think, and we're barely at the forefront of it, right? I mean, it's just
If you
still at the beginning.
if you look at the difference, like when you look up something on Google, like I'm coughing or whatever, if you search that up, it's like you're gonna die. You have cancer. You have this, right? The level of like of difference is just it's clear as day.
Right.
And Google to us to everybody is like what we use all the time to search for answers.
All the time.
So it's like and that's a huge company, right? So like AI just kind of doing that is just insane to me, right? And I also agree. I think like in the future might not be too long from now, and
Right.
it'll do amazing things. How are you using it, or how do you plan on using it?
Yeah, I see a lot of potential with AI. I've used it a couple times in the past, in building different things using computer vision,
Yeah,
to be able to recognize. We launched major promotions with brands, but I think now the way I see it is, how do we accelerate AI in the world? How do we accelerate to get to what everyone wants? Because there's a lot of great uses and applications of AI,
Yep.
but there's still a lot of work to be done. It's just shocking to see what's there now, which is amazing. But if you want to get to the point where it's truly automating everything, I think that's a big focus of mine, is really accelerating it. And I think a big piece that's important is what you see, right? Think about vision. Think about, media, video, and content.
Yeah.
There's so much there that can be used, but there's problems and challenges in processing media content. I mean, think about
That's
the
true.
millions and millions of videos, the sizes of those videos. If you're going through HD or 4K content, the cost alone on servers, whether you're hosting it with AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google, those costs alone to be able to process all of that, they're in the millions. I
Yeah.
mean, to train a new model with large data sets, I mean, you're talking tens of millions of dollars in order to do it. So I think there's a big opportunity there to help scale down and bring the cost down to something a little bit more normalized. And I see an opportunity to be able to now consume a lot more content instantaneously.
Which is
And
yeah, because instead of watching like how-to videos where it takes like 3 minutes to get to what you actually need, it's like there's an AI software that literally just recaps the whole thing, tells
right,
you exactly what you need to know at the time period. Like you no longer need to recap it anymore. Like it's just
right,
insane.
right. And provide you with your action items and to-dos and automatically sets
Boom.
up your entire schedule based on it, pinging your different
Yeah.
departments. Like I want to see this thing trickle out to like every step of the process,
Yeah.
in that type of world. So,
Now, what about the cons? Because one big con that I see is like deep fakes. Another thing
oh
is
yeah.
like, voice, people are going to be able to insert people's voice patterns, their tone, and then be able to like literally type anything out. And that's what it'll say as if it was you. I think that's also, that can be that's a risk for both.
It's a big risk, and it's a big risk in seeing kind of the output that it can produce in a lot of the deep fakes. And I think there's a lot more moderation and tools that need to be developed in order to detect some of those types of
Yeah.
things. I think the other part is how confident the AI is and the tone that it presents on information. So misinformation is a big deal in kind of seeing what
Yep.
happens because, it might tell you the answer to something and it sounds very confident, but in the end,
It could be wrong.
it
Yeah.
could be wrong, right? And I don't think that's what the tool was meant to be used for initially, but it is a great value if you can have access to the correct data. I mean, it's
Yeah.
trained on millions and millions of pieces of content. Not all of it's true. And the other issue we see with AI is also bias, right? And you can see like in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
tone when you're asking questions.
Yep.
There's examples if you ask a jail, tell me a joke about a guy or something like that, and it'll say the joke, and you say tell it about a girl, and it won't say it. And
Yeah.
there's like different things that are and there's tons of use cases of those. But I think it's going to get better over time. But I think in those cases, I think a lot of what we need is maybe general more regulation on all right, what are some parameters we need with AI because there's nothing that exists. I think a lot of independent companies are taking that on their own.
Yeah.
I think we do need to agree something in general of kind of how it be used, right? In terms of like misinformation, deep fakes, harm, and how those are being used to ensure that we are, keeping it at bay and making sure that it's set up the right way. Keep
Yeah,
it safe,
because
right?
even with, like, crypto, like, there was not regulation for, like, a long time, and even now, like, it's still kind of,
It's still
wishy-washy,
shaky.
and that's why there's so many scams, so many things happening, So it's kinda crazy, but it's like, how do you I don't know, for me, it's like, how do you regulate that, It's just it seems very, very difficult, right?
It is.
Even for example, with, like, AI, and I'll be the first to say, like, I got tricked. There was a so, I don't know if you know this, but recently they're saying that Trump is supposed to be, indicted and taken to prison on, or whatever, jailed on, Tuesday.
Right.
But what's today? Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Wednesday.
today's Wednesday. Anyways, I saw images yesterday,
They're
of
hilarious.
yeah, of Trump being, taken by, officers and things like that, but it was done on Midjourney. It was done on an AI. So
Right.
it wasn't even real. And to me, first glance, I'm just like scrolling through things. I'm like, what the fuck, But it's fake. It's
One
just, yeah,
And what's crazy is I like when you first take a look at it, you think it's real
yeah,
because like the whole scenario on what it is and what he's known for. And so it was just insane that you'd have to take a double look at those images. It was just
yeah,
out of this world.
yeah. Now think about it. In a year from now, how are you going to be able to perceive anything different? Like it's going to be as real as could be. I feel like, you
Yeah,
know,
it's only going to get better. It's
yeah,
going to be much harder to tell, and even AI systems may at one point not be able to tell the difference. Because even today, like there's iffy.
yeah,
I've tested out different. Some people are trying to create some tools on. All right, let's see if we can detect if content was written by AI.
yep,
And I tried multiple scenarios. I had unique content that I wrote, and then I had content that I used with AI, and it didn't get it all right all the time.
Yeah.
On some of them, it flagged it, and on others, it didn't, which is right. And these are the types of things that are going to be more difficult to use in the future.
Yeah. Well, how do you imagine like business owners right now, as it is right now?
Right.
What are some things that they can do to kind of automate some processes or just kind of make their life a little bit easier as a business owner?
Yeah. I mean, I think it if you think about automation as a whole, there's some tools that allow you to upload your own documents, as an example. And let's just think, customer service. If you're a tech
Yeah.
startup, if you're a company and you've got tech support, hopefully you've been creating, how tos and
Yeah.
keeping your
SOPs.
knowledge base and
Yeah.
SOBs and all those types of things. And if you can utilize that to analyze your content and use that to help answer questions and to help even with internal training, I think there's a big opportunity there. And if you don't have that content and you haven't created it, a couple prompts within, these different AI systems can help you generate what you need as your first pass. And, utilizing this tool for drafts, right? It may
Yeah.
not be perfect, but it's okay to use these types of tools to create your first draft and then adapt, tweak, right? And make sure you include your own tone, your personality, keep adjusting your prompts and getting it right. That'll help you create a lot of content that you need, especially when you think about customer service,
Yeah.
and even internally as tools. If you needed to create recaps, or I don't know if you've ever been in a scenario, you take a bunch of notes, you're dealing with a customer, you're in the middle of everything, and you write a bunch of notes. That's a bunch of scramble. Take those notes and drop it in and ask it to clean it up and summarize it. And you'll be amazed at how easy it is. It might have taken you 15 minutes to go in and clean up and create a cleaner draft, but
Yeah.
why, right? You filter that out, right? Eliminate the 10, 15 minutes you were going to spend and utilize some of these tools to help with those efforts,
Yeah.
as an
No,
example.
I'm with you 100%. Like right now we're using it's called with Delphi or with Delphi. And
Okay.
basically what it is, it's like it's trying to clone myself. So I'm adding all my SOPs, I'm adding videos on YouTube that I've done for, for years,
Right.
and I'm inserting a ton of the content. And right now it's at 17% efficiency, but I'm wondering how it'll look like to get to 100% where it knows my knowledge, knows the SOPs that I have in like, project management system. Um, Ideally, in the future, I want it to go through our Slack messages, our Discord messages, to
Yep.
see how I would respond. So that way, it's like, hey, if the team has a question, it can pretty much answer like me, which would
Right.
eliminate myself having to manage. Because at least for me right now, like beforehand, before I had a team, I'd manage the clients, right? Now that I have a team, I manage the team, right? So it's like you still have to manage in some level, unless you have like a CEO under you, which at the moment I don't. I'm the CEO.
Yep.
But it's like things like that can make your life so much easier. Imagine, how much free time you save up by not doing that stuff yourself. Like, it's crazy, dude.
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, I've started multiple businesses and, as we talked about earlier, and I've exited on some ventures.
Yep.
And those are some big learning lessons for CEOs and especially first time founders. So if anybody out there who's listening and they're a first time founder or the CEO, like you have to figure out a way to start working on the business and not in the business. Right? And
Yes.
that's a difficult part. And tools with AI can help with that, but it's about delegation. And you have some delegation that you can do, which is going to be to as you increase your staff and your team and you hire more people, making sure that you can really, delegate some of the work. Is it something that you really need to work on,
Right.
or is it something that you can offset? And you might have a choice on saying now, I'm going to offset this to somebody I just hired on a salary and they're coming in, or I'm going to leverage something like one of these AI tools to be able to do that, right?
Yep.
And that's really important. And I think as we built our businesses, we would have never gotten to where we are if I kept working in the business.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was very difficult when we first started because a lot of the customers that we had were very high caliber Fortune 500 clients, and I pretty much held it like my baby, right? As you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, you know, luckily I had a really good team, co-founder, right, Elizabeth, and the rest of the team that we worked with. And so it took me time, but I was able to offset a lot of things back then. I wish I had the AI. I didn't have it back then. I'll
Yeah.
say that. But we started hiring and recruiting. We started, and little by little, opening up. We're allowing others to be able to take on some roles and start realizing, like, is this really going to drive the business forward? Yes or no? And is it something that I can do, or I can offset to someone else and deliver more value? And I think that's where it's extremely important to kind of, for a lot of, especially first-time entrepreneurs, to think about.
100%. I think first time entrepreneurs, like in order to get out of the rat race, you have to delegate. You just need
Mhm.
to. If not, there's only so much energy you have, only so much time. You can't do marketing, sales, fulfillment, HR, finance. Like it's impossible. I mean, you
Right.
can do it at a low level.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it at a higher level, right?
Yep.
And especially like you said, when you're dealing with higher end clients, like you need to make sure you're on it, right? Because if not, it's an easy way to lose a client. It's an easy way to make sure your LTV is not high. Like, so anyways, that's a very good nugget. What's another good nugget for CEOs that are in startup phase that want to go to the next level, that, you would recommend?
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to go into hyper growth, right? Really scaling and building those companies, but
Yeah.
they don't realize that you have to start somewhere, right? And so number one is just start. That's a big thing because most
Yeah.
people just don't start. They overthink it too much when they're building up a company. Number two, what I would say is, you want to start understanding the customer. The customer, if you can solve a true customer need and a problem that they have, that's going to help you as something that you can expand on, right?
Yeah.
And with that also comes into play is, if you're understanding your customers, really focus on a niche. You can't do everything. Don't branch off into 10 different ideas and start creating this crazy empire. You'll get there,
Yeah.
right? If you continue to build on it, but you can start in one very specific vertical. Think about the industry, think about the client who in that client base, don't just say, oh, I'm going to do the entire, let's take real estate, for example. Yeah, I'm just going to go in the real estate industry and take over everything in real estate. You can narrow that down more. Right?
Yeah.
And narrow it down and be like, all right, you've got construction, you've got multifamily, you've got property managers, you have all these different aspects. And so, we did this with one of our products that we launched, Zeki, and it was a marketing platform, but for multifamily property management companies.
Yeah.
And specifically, we were targeting property management marketers, right? So it was very niche and very specific on what the product was being used for, but it didn't mean that that was our only limitation in what we delivered.
Right.
And so, if you're working in a specific industry, you can start there and then expand outwards. You're like, all right, I'm starting with property management companies. This is my target. I'm going to understand them. I'm going to grow them. As you continue to expand, you can start working with, okay, maybe I can multifamily investors. Maybe they invest in property management companies or invest into multifamily portfolios. And then you can deal with construction and you can go to real estate agents, brokers. I mean, you can eventually expand outwards, but always find your niche, focus on there, right? Really dominate there, and then you can expand outwards. And I think that's something also very important, especially with first-time founders, but even other companies as they're launching something, sometimes you forget.
Yep.
Really
Yep.
got to keep that in mind.
I mean, it's because the buzzword is like scale. So like they want to grow as quickly as possible, but like the best way to do that is to dominate in a certain area, have a repeatable process that you can scale that part out. And then if you wanted to go on, move forward to something else, you can. But like
Right.
it's very difficult to do so much at once.
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, when you mention the word scale, the first thing people think, I got to scale. That means I got to remove all these inefficiencies and I got to run and I got to go doing all these million things, right?
Yeah.
But I think to help scale, what's going to get you there, you have to do things that don't scale.
Right.
And
Right.
that's really hard to comprehend for a lot of people, doing things that don't
Like
scale.
speaking to your customers.
Pick up the phone and call your customer.
Yeah.
Like,
100%, dude.
of course, that's not scalable. And if you have thousands of customers, like it's not going to be scalable in the long run, but you have to start there, right?
Yeah.
And I remember even with our platform, we launched it, we had an entire team and full team, in-house developers, product manager, engineers, sales. I mean, we had a whole team in-house. But I made sure that when we were first launching the product, I actually set up all my Zoom invites, and I did all, like, I would say for the first couple of months, I did all the demos with the customers up front,
Yeah.
so that I had an opportunity to meet with the customer, speak to them, understand what they liked, what they reacted to, what they didn't react to. And every demo that I did with a customer, I actually tweaked our playbook and I trained our in-house sales team in order to be able to go out and do it that way.
Yep.
So I've now had narrowed down an entire script, but that's one element of something that would have never scaled. I can't be on every demo
Yeah, 100%.
and go
Yeah.
out fundraising for the company, meeting to try to secure new clients and doing all these different other areas. But sometimes you need to do those types of things up front, make sure you nail it, and that's what's going to lead you to scale and to get into hypergrowth.
Yeah. Dude, well, we had a phenomenal talk. Where can people find you?
Definitely. They could find me Twitter, so at Sebastian Mourra, Mourra, and LinkedIn. Feel free to connect, DM me. Would love to connect. Yeah,
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being here.
of course. Thank you, Ulyses.